Hey boys, it's HarmNone. Today we're going to be going over 10 of the most overrated vehicles in Grand Theft Auto Online. The comment section on this video is going to be a bloody one. It's going to be interesting and I'm definitely going to offend a lot of people, especially as we go up the list. It's going to get more and more offensive as we go. There's going to be a lot of salt. Get your shovels ready, boys. We're opening a salt mine here in the comments. Anyway, with that being said, we're going to start off with number 10. Whew, oh boy. Alright, don't start shooting yet. Give me a minute to explain this one. Now, the Patriot Mil-Spec is actually a really good vehicle. Do not get me wrong. It has Imani tech. It's got great options. Obviously, it's equipable with armor as well. It has machine guns. It's got the proximity mine, oil slick dropper, but it does have some issues, let's be honest here. Something that I always see people talking about with the Patriot Mil-Spec and to why it's so good and why it's the greatest vehicle to ever be added into Grand Theft Auto Online is because it's got this slanted back on it there, as you guys can see, which makes you completely bulletproof, allegedly. Now, I've got to say, the slant back, it actually does do that. It does its job. So I don't really know why I just made fun of that right there, but I'll tell you what else the slant back does, and this is really annoying. If I try to shoot behind me, do you notice how the bullets aren't going anywhere until I point the gun the other direction and start shooting out of the window? See, then it's fine. But if I want to try to shoot over here, I'm not hitting anything with this. Now, so that is my counter argument to the slant back. It's not as good as a vehicle like, say, the Zentorno, where you can actually shoot straight through the part where they can't shoot into the vehicle. But with the Patriot Mil-Spec, you just can't, like, you just can't shoot out of this thing for, like, I don't know, a good, I don't know what I would call that, like 50 degrees, something like that. Not that that's the biggest issue ever. I've honestly never even used this thing to back somebody down like that. I just run straight at them and just kill them anyways. It's not the most useful feature in my opinion. Another problem with the Patriot Mil-Spec, and I don't mean to go on about this thing, I actually really like the Patriot Mil-Spec. I mean, obviously this is customized. I have one in the game, so I obviously don't hate this thing that much. But another problem is that the machine guns are too high for most vehicles. Now, that seems to be kind of a common issue with machine guns in GTA when they're mounted to vehicles. They're either too low or too high. Generally, the machine guns on this thing are mounted too high to kill most vehicles. Like you guys can see right now, I'm shooting way too high on the stratum there. Is a little bit annoying, and then on SUVs, they're too tall to actually be effective. So the gun placement on this vehicle is not exactly ideal, let's just say that. However, it's not really something that I would complain about that much. I know I'm complaining about it right now, but that's because I had to find things that were wrong with the Patriot Mil-Spec. I gotta say that. Now, the last and final thing with the Patriot Mil-Spec that is a problem is the handling on this thing is terrible, man. I can't tell you, like, the amount of times when I've been trying to chase somebody with the Patriot and they go past me coming the other direction and I have to stop this thing, turn the vehicle around, and then they come back at you the other way and go past you again. It's like the braking that this thing has is not very great, and the turning is also not very great, and not to mention it's not a very fast vehicle either. It's got quite a few issues. There's plenty of other vehicles in the game that have these exact same issues, and the vehicles are worse a lot of the time than the Patriot Mil-Spec is. So that's why the Patriot Mil-Spec is at number 10, is because it's not that overrated, but I do feel like a certain portion of the community gives the Patriot Mil-Spec a little bit too much credit. Now, not that that's a bad thing. Like I've said a couple times, I love the Patriot Mil-Spec. I think it's an awesome vehicle, but there are certain members of the community that definitely tend to overrate this thing and make it sound like it's this god tier vehicle that's like better than everything else in the game. Unfortunately, it just isn't quite that. Anyway, guys, that's it for number 10. Let's move on to number 9. Alright guys, this one's gonna get me in some hot water for sure. We have the Imponte Ruiner 2000. Now, the Ruiner 2000, don't get me wrong, very good, and it can be very good. However, this thing does get a lot of credit, and I feel like it's definitely a really good vehicle. However, there are vehicles that are better, and a lot of the thing with the Ruiner 2000 for me is I always see people going on about the Ruiner 2000 from this one mission that you can launch with it, and you get a Ruiner 2000 that is effectively invincible, they always say. But the reality of it is it basically has the same armor as the Night Shark, which is not invincible. If you didn't know, the Night Shark is not invincible. Not to say that it's bad. I do feel like people kind of overhype that ability a lot, and it's also like, you know, it's a little bit inconvenient to have to launch a mission to get a car to be, you know, good. And the Ruiner 2000 itself, it actually handles really well. I've got to give it to the Ruiner 2000. This thing handles incredibly well for a muscle car. But what I will say is the Ruiner 2000 is extremely expensive, and when you don't have the mission variant of it, it's not that great, man. Like, it's kind of weak. I mean, it's got some cool abilities. Yes, you can boost jump it and then pull the parachute. Like, it's a very James Bond-esque, you know, sort of car, which, you know, I gotta say, it's cool. It's a cool car, and I'm not here to just completely discredit everything about it. However, I do feel like sometimes the community overhypes this thing and makes it sound like it's, again, a god tier vehicle, when really it's Toreador that's kind of worse, but has the ability to get a mission where it has a bit more armor. I don't know. It's definitely an interesting vehicle, and I don't mean to just completely discredit the Ruiner 2000. I do think that it's very cool. I honestly do. I genuinely believe that this is a very cool vehicle, but in my opinion, it is a little bit overrated. That's not to say it's bad, but it is a little tiny bit overrated. I think we can all probably agree with that, at least hopefully. Anyway, guys, that's it for number 9. Let's move on to number 8. Okay, now before you start crying, I know there's bound to be at least some 12 or 13-year-olds watching this that will defend the Supra until their last dying breath. The Dinka Jester Classic is very overrated in GTA. Now, yes, it is based off of the Supra, which is God's car in real life, obviously coming stock with 3 billion horsepower. Yes, you heard that right. 3 billion horsepower the stock Supra has. It's also the fastest car on Earth, best looking car on Earth. Paul Walker drove it in a Fast and Furious movie. What else is good about it? 10 trillion foot-pounds of torque. Fastest car ever. Supra drag race Supra. Yeah, I'm sorry, I can't think of anything else. Jester Classic has a few issues. It has one thing called engine resistance. It also has some things that are called handling flags, which don't allow the car to handle at its full potential, which is quite annoying. Engine resistance limits the vehicle from being as fast as it truly should be. So those are definitely pretty unfortunate things with the Jester Classic, and I would say most of the community is pretty good when it comes to rating this car correctly. A lot of people understand that it's not that great of a vehicle because of those things. 12 and 13-year-old Supra fans, and you know, there's some older ones too, probably some younger ones as well. They don't take that criticism very well. Neither did that lady. She didn't take the criticism of the car hitting her very well. Where was I going with this? Yeah, the Jester Classic is not very good. It's hyped by Supra fanboys, and it just can't back it up within GTA, unfortunately. It's just not that fast, and it's just not that good of a car. Anyway, guys, that's it for number 8. Let's move on to number 7 before I get shot. Alright, guys, at number 7, we have the Pegassi Tesseract. Now, this is the second time within a couple of days that I've got to absolutely shit on this car, so it's kind of an enjoyable experience because I really don't like this car. I know there's some people in the comments who I've had talks with in the comment section, and they say they really like the Tesseract, and I'm sorry, I do not share the same opinion as you. A lot of people think that this car is, you know, based off of a futuristic Lamborghini, so it's got to be best car ever, and it handles amazingly, and this, that, and the next thing. I don't know what they're smoking on over there, but the Tesseract literally handles like it has McDonald's trays underneath the rear wheels all the time. It's quite fast. I mean, it is electric, so it accelerates very well. I will not deny that the Tesseract accelerates extremely well. However, the handling of it is absolutely awful. You've got McDonald's trays with paper towel on top of the trays underneath the rear tires on this car. I'm convinced that's what the Rockstar designers were going for. I've got a spoiler on this thing and it still handles like trash. The Tesseract is just super overhyped because it's futuristic Lamborghini, a million horsepower. It's like the Supra fans but of Lamborghini. They see like a really cool looking futuristic car and they're just like, it's gotta be the greatest car ever. And the truth is the Tesseract is not very good. It's just, yeah, it's not very good. Don't get me wrong, it looks good, accelerates okay. Actually accelerates pretty well. That's kind of it. Boy, okay, that's gonna do it for the Tesseract, guys. Let's move on to number 6. All right, guys, at number 6 we have the X80 Proto. Now the X80 it's a cool looking car. Don't get me wrong, it's a cool looking car, but because it's a cool looking car, a lot of the GTA community kind of assumes that the Grotti X80 Proto is like just gonna be this incredible hypercar. And you know, to be honest, when it first came out, this car was actually pretty darn good. It has not aged very well. And even when it came out, the car still wasn't that great. Like the RE7B would absolutely smoke the X80 in pretty much every race you'd go into. I mean, I can't think of a time where I lost to an X80 Proto in an RE7B, so there's that, I guess. I think that the X80 suffers from Tesseract syndrome, or maybe the Tesseract suffers from X80 syndrome, which basically what I mean is it's a futuristic looking car, so people automatically assume it's going to be like the greatest thing ever. Every time that I go into a stunt race in GTA Online, I always see an insane amount of X80 Protos, even when there is actually a car that's better than the X80. So basically, if you go into a supercars race in GTA and you don't have a car, actually no matter what, it will give you an option to select a stock vehicle, and a lot of the time the X80 is in there, especially with the stunt races. And people will always take an X80 Proto instead of cars like the RE7B when they have the option to, and it's just crazy to me, but it's definitely like something like what I said, like with X80 syndrome, like they think because it's a futuristic looking car that it's gotta be the fastest ever, and like fair enough, I guess, but the X80 is definitely an overrated car in GTA. At least it was at one point. You never see anybody driving them today outside of stunt races, but still there are people picking them in stunt races, which is just a crying shame because they always lose, so go figure, I guess. But anyway guys, at number 6 we have the X80 Proto. Let's move on to number 5. All right, just don't shoot yet, just let me get this out. Let me get this out before you start writing your hate comment and start finding my address to come and kill me. Hear me out, okay? So at number 5 we have the Bravado Gauntlet Hellfire. I can see the comments. I already know the comments are coming. Don't get me wrong, I absolutely love the Gauntlet Hellfire. It is a great car. Don't get me wrong, in free mode, this thing is perfectly rated. It is a great car. It's absolutely incredible for free mode. I can see why people drive it. It's a lot of fun. It's super fast. You can do burnouts with it. You can drift with it. You can do pretty much whatever you want with it. However, every time that I make a best muscle cars list that is to do with lap times and top speed, I always get hate comments from Bravado Gauntlet Hellfire drivers, and I guess somebody told you guys that it's like the best car for racing because it's like fast in a straight line, but there is something in GTA and it's called grip, and there's another thing and it's called handling. Now some cars on tracks that rely heavily on grip and handling sometimes can beat brute strength and horsepower, which is what this car is really good at, and it's not so good at grip and handling. So on really twisty circuits that rely super heavily on grip and handling, the Hellfire sometimes gets beaten. And believe it or not, just because you're going 100 miles an hour faster than somebody into a corner doesn't mean that the person who can brake super late and go faster through the corner is not going to beat you. Now I know this is a very hard concept to understand, and I know you guys are probably getting angrier with me, but the Hellfire is not that good, especially when it comes to racing. In terms of online and just free mode cruising around, the Hellfire is an awesome car. I can totally see why people like it. I like it myself. I mean, I have one. I actually have two. It's a good car, just not for racing. I'm sorry. I know you're probably going to shoot me anyways, but hey, I tried at least. Let's move on to number 4. Okay guys, we've officially arrived at the next stop on the HarmNone trying to offend every single car enthusiast group in the entire world, and at number 4 we of course have the Futo GTX. This car is not good at anything except drifting, and it's okay at drifting. I can hear all the anime profile pics screaming at me right now in the comments, crying, throwing up, all of it. I'm sorry to do this to you, but the Futo GTX is like, I get that it's cool for drifting, and I know it's from Initial D or something. I don't participate in that whole thing. I appreciate drifting. I like drifting in Forza. I've never really seen the appeal of drifting in GTA, but I understand why you guys do it. It's completely understandable, and I get that having a car from a TV show or an anime or a movie, I don't know what Initial D is, to be honest with you, but I get that having the car that's in your favorite show or whatever is cool in GTA. However, the Futo GTX, like, for anything other than drifting, is a completely terrible car. It's literally amongst the slowest sports cars in the entire game. Like, this thing, you would not have a hope in hell of winning a race with it. If you want to comment down below and say you've won a race with it before, I'll just assume you're racing by yourself or you're lying. The Futo GTX, like, it's got cool customization, I guess, if you're into that whole thing. But for the most part, in my opinion, the Futo GTX is not very good. I'm sorry, you can unsubscribe and leave your hate comment and your dislike now. The Futo GTX it's not that good. And you're gonna hate me even more when you see number 3 and number 2. So anyway guys, let's move on to number 3 right now. Alright guys, next up, we got the Futo. Now, I'm not gonna spend a whole lot of time on the Futo. In my opinion, the Futo is a better car than the Futo GTX. I think it's better at drifting. If I see any more people going on about how good this thing is at drifting in any comment section on anything, I will scream and just combust, because the Futo, like, it's good at drifting, don't get me wrong, but that's literally it. There's really no other redeeming qualities with the Futo. It's good at drifting, not good for anything else. It's a cute little car, you know what I mean? Like, it's, you know, it has my respect, but like, stop going on about it, to be honest. It's the same as the Futo GTX. I think I speak for everyone who's not within the GTA drift community. Please drift something else, just something else, man. Or at least keep drifting the Futo, but maybe just don't tell us about it so much. Now that I've lost like 200 subs, probably, let's move on to number 2. All right guys, at number 2, yep, it's the Calico GTF. Now I want to get one thing perfectly clear. The Calico GTF is a pretty great car for doing street races in GTA. Like, I understand it's a cool car. The Celica in real life is sick. And honestly, I don't even really hate the Calico GTF. The problem is how much people go on and on and on and on about it. Whether I'm making a JDM vehicles list, whether it's the comment section on a YouTube video talking about Japanese cars or talking about tuner cars, no matter what, the Calico gets brought up and everybody makes it sound like this is God's car. This is the one car that God put into GTA. It's like, it's kind of the same thing as like the Supra. The Calico, don't get me wrong, it has a pretty good top speed. I mean, it's worse since the tuners vehicles got nerfed, but it's still okay. The handling on the Calico GTF is probably my biggest gripe with the car. This thing has insane understeer. Like, it is so bad. If you try to go around a corner with this thing, you can lock the wheels to the right and the car is still gonna go pretty much straight, as you guys literally just saw. Like, yes, I was going too fast, but the car understeers quite severely. Not a very great feature. Now, with that being said, the Calico has great customization. It really does have pretty good performance, especially when it comes to doing street races. It's like one of the fastest cars in the entire game when it comes to those. And it does have pretty predictable handling outside of the understeer, which is probably its most annoying feature. Overall, the Calico, like, it is good, but it's also overrated because of the community. It's not necessarily the vehicle that's overrated, it's the community that makes it overrated. They make it sound like this car is literally the answer to everyone's problems in GTA. They talk about the Calico like it's one of the fastest sports cars in the game. This thing's literally like 40th. Or like 35th. It's so slow. Like, in comparison to like cars like the Itali GTO, the Calico GTF and all of the other tuners DLC cars are terribly slow. I remember getting comments on my top 10 best sports cars list in GTA and people were like, where's the Calico GTF? It's nowhere near the top 10. Like, we're talking 20, 25, maybe 30 places off of the pace of the top 10 vehicles. I'm just like tired of whoever's telling you guys that the Calico is like a great sports car. It's good in the tuners subclass, but it's not a great sports car. It's like a very average sports car at best. Now, yes, it does have the good top speed, which does help, but that's literally it. Anyway, guys, that is my rant for the Calico GTF. There goes another 200 subscribers. Let's move into number 1 and let's get rid of like 500. Here we go. Okay, guys, at number 1, we have the Itali RSX. The amount of comments that I've got over my YouTube career about the Italy RSX and people having completely wrong information about this car is absolutely insane. These are a few comments from my top 10 supercars video within GTA Online. Where's the RSX? Why isn't the RSX on here? The RSX is literally the fastest car ever. Why isn't it on here? It's a sports car. It's not even a supercar, but somebody told these guys that it's a supercar. I don't know who, but somebody told them. Now, I've also got the guys that argue with me that the Italy RSX is actually a better sports car than the Italy GTO. Okay, don't get me wrong, man. If you drive a car a lot, you can definitely shave some extra time off of your laps in GTA. You can do that with every car, not just the Italy RSX. Now, I'm sure in the comments on this video or on another video of mine, there's somebody who's got a story about their RSX being the greatest car in GTA Online ever, beating Italy GTOs like they're standing still and this and that and the next thing. I have video footage of me absolutely pummeling Italy RSXs in the Italy GTO. Now, that's not to say that maybe they were worse drivers than me. Maybe I'm a good driver. Regardless of anything, the Italy RSX is not all it's cracked up to be. It is the third fastest sports car in GTA Online. Good for the Italy RSX. It's very quick. However, it is not nearly as good as people seem to think that it is. It's obviously not a supercar, which people seem to think that it is. I'm just kind of sick of the whole narrative that the Italy RSX is like the best car ever. It just isn't. Trust me, don't get me wrong. I love the look of the Italy RSX, and I think that is what gets this car into trouble. I think it kind of suffers from X80 and Tesseract syndrome a little bit because it is such a good looking car. It has great customization. It's got all kinds of great things about it. I mean, it's 4-wheel drive, it's super fast, looks great. Like, there's nothing really wrong with this car, but the community seems to overrate this thing an extreme amount, and I just honestly am pretty sick of it. It's a great car, but it's not that great. Anyway, guys, that is pretty much it for the top 10 most overrated cars in Grand Theft Auto Online. If you guys enjoyed this video, or if you learned something, a like is of course appreciated, if not dislike. Feel free to argue with me in the comments all you guys want. I already know some of you probably have started doing that at this point in the video. Subscribe if you guys are new, and I will see you all in the next video. Until then, take care. Peace.